In this training series, we'll be looking at time management and the systems that we use at Cloud Staff. One of the key things about time management is managing how you spend your day, and it's also trying to work out what you should be working on. Now, one of the really key things you have to realize is you really should be writing things down. And it doesn't matter whether you're writing down them on paper, WordPad, Excel, or even into a system such as Tracks. It's important that you write things down. And let me explain why. It's all about your brain. So the way in which the brain works is if you need to do something and you don't write it down, the mind has to store that memory or that alert or that event somewhere inside the brain. And so you're doing some work and you say, I'll fix it up later, and you don't bother writing it down. Subconsciously, your brain needs to set out some memory locations, store that event, and then it has to keep reminding itself, is it time to do that event? Is it time to do that event? So subconsciously, believe it or not, your brain will actually stress. The more things that you try to remember that are important, the brain will keep trying to shuffle them around and those sort of things. As soon as you write things down, the brain can start to realize it doesn't need to memorize that event or that particular task. And so it can free up and focus on other things. This sounds really weird, but it does work and you really should try it. Here is a really good example. You've got a flashlight at home and it runs flat. Ideally, the next time you're out shopping and you walk past your batteries, what should happen is the brain should say, hey, I've got a torch at home, it needs batteries, there are the batteries, let me go and buy them. But it doesn't actually work like that. What happens is you go shopping, you walk past the batteries, you walk past the torches, and nothing actually even remotely clicks. You get home, you open the drawer, there's the flashlight, you went, I should have bought batteries. That's the way the brain actually works. So the brain works because when it remembers things when it's prompted, by seeing an object right in front of you, like the torch, or at random times, like 3 o'clock in the morning. Neither of these is very helpful. So, besides the fact that you're trying to store things in it, the way in which the brain then brings those events back is not quite as simple as it should be. So that's why we use things such as Tracks. So Tracks is basically a to-do list. And it's designed for you to put work tasks in, but also designed for you to put personal tasks in. And again, it comes back to this whole thing. If you're thinking at work that I need to go and buy a school book this afternoon after work, or I need to pay the electricity bill, or I need to do this, or I need to do that, all those personal events, again, will build up in your mind, and you've got to try to shuffle things around, try to remember them. You won't. Maybe sometimes you write them down, but as soon as you put them down, your brain can forget about them, and away you go. So it's really important, again, to put things down, but not just work tasks, but also the personal tasks that you're dealing with. Now, confidentiality, of course, is important. So the Tracks system is not viewed by your manager. Everyone will have their own individual logon. You do not assign tasks to anybody. You cannot see other people's tasks. It's all designed simply as a personal tool for you to use at both work and also in your personal life. So, how does Tracks work? Well, it doesn't work how you would normally expect. There is no use of priority systems and those sort of things. In fact, the two most important things about Tracks is what's called a context and a due date. The context is very important. And it basically describes where, or the tool, or the person that you need to deal with to complete this particular task. Now, a good example is you need to buy a school book. The context for that is at SM Mall, because that's where you buy the school book. There's no point in you actually putting that on your general to-do list, putting it as a priority, and every time at work, every 5 minutes, you look through the list and go, I've got to buy that school book. That doesn't make a lot of sense. You can't buy the school book at work, so why bother showing it in your work to-do list, if you like? So that's why we use this system called context. And context basically defines where or, or who you need to deal with or the tool you need to use to complete a task. Some other examples could be, I need to register a domain name. We're setting up a website for a customer. The context for that would be at the desk. Maybe you want to read a book, or you see something that you want to read when you're going home. Again, set a context up called at jeepney, or on the plane, or on the bus. You need to pay the electricity bill. You need to pay that at SM Mall. Designing a new site, again, is done at the desk where you're using your PC, or alternatively, you might be dealing with someone, such as you need to check a tax code. Then that would happen with at HR is the contact. Or you're designing a website, you need to work with the designers, that would be at the designers. So as you can see, you take your tasks and you focus them at where they need to be done, or who you need to be working with to actually achieve them, or a specific tool that needs to happen. And as soon as you start to take this approach, your task list becomes very, very clear. So the next bit, as I mentioned, there is no priority, there is no urgent, there is no due today. What you basically set is for every single task, you set a due date. Maybe that's the end of the week, the end of the month, or the end of the year. It doesn't matter. But as you set the due date, that's the bit that then, in conjunction with the context, can be used to figure out what tasks you should be working on. So the context field I mentioned is very important. What we should mention is that there are some things which are not good at a context. So for instance, if you're planning a holiday to Cebu, you would never have a context holiday to Cebu, because you would be planning that holiday at SM Mall when you go to the travel agency, so the context could be at travel agency. You would never have a context at urgent or at important. That doesn't make sense in this system. The due date and the context are what are important, and they're the bits that actually define what you should be working at. You'll notice in the context that we've worked so far, the at symbol has been used. The at symbol is simply just, it's not needed, but it's just nice to put it in front of a context so it helps relay that I do this task at this particular location, or at this person, or those sort of things. So it's just to help remind you that the context is not about important or being urgent or the project. It's about where do you actually do the task, what tool do you need to use, or who do you need to be dealing with to be able to do this particular task. So that's the context field. There are some other fields that when you log a task you can use as well. There is a project. The project is optional, it doesn't have to be specified. But if you're doing things such as building a website, that could be the project heading. Then you might have lots of tasks associated with that. The reason that we can have a project is that there is a view where you can view all the tasks associated with a project just to see how they're all sitting there. But again, it's not important, it's not the most important part of the system, but it is available there if you're working with multiple tasks which are going to be basically the subject of a single goal. There's also a field called tags. Now, tags is basically a filing system. You can add different tags for the tasks. They're not mandatory again. You can have multiple tasks, just separate them with commas. So a task could be, maybe you could have a tag called tax, or a tag called domain name registrations, and they would basically be used for later when you wanted to file. So you might remember, gee, I wanted to find out when I paid my taxes on those sort of things, and then you can simply go and view all the tasks which have a tax tag associated with them. There's also a field called depends upon. Depends upon is where this task can only be achieved when another task is completed. Now, why depends upon is important, or why it's actually quite useful, maybe not important is the word. Depends upon will actually hide the tasks until they're ready to be displayed. So all you're seeing again on your to-do list, on your tasks list, is basically the tasks which are important. If you can't achieve a task because something else needs to be done before that, then why bother displaying it? Only display it when the other task is finished and it can be done. So let's go through now and have a bit of a look at how the task system actually works. Okay, so let's have a look. Let me just log on. Here is the home page that appears. Tasks is very simple. You'll notice on the right hand side a black window when I can instantly go and add my set of tasks, and on the right hand side you'll see the context where I'm actually working on. You'll notice each line, if the due date is becoming close, it will be color coded. As you can see here, I've got some tasks which are overdrawn by 1 day, overdue by 1 day, and I can see what tasks are coming up. Now let me first of all go through, and we might put in a new task. And in here, particular here, I'm just going to go to the description, and in this particular case, we're going to be setting up some mailboxes. So set up mailboxes. John Smith. There we go. So the project in this particular case is it's going to be a Google Docs migration. The context. Now, if I press the @ symbol, I can see all the contexts that I've set up, and you'll notice down here I've got one called @desk, which is a pretty good one. And I'm just going to call this email. The task's not really needed. When do I need to do this? Well, I need to do this by tomorrow. It's not dependent upon anything. And there we go. Now, I'm going to create another task inside here, and this is going to be migrate John's mail. Now, this is our, if I just type in Google Docs migration, you'll see it appear there. The context again, I'm doing this at my desk. There we go. Tags again, could just be email or not really needed. Due date. Well, we've got till Friday to do that. But what I'm going to do with this particular task is it's actually going to be dependent upon setting up the mail first of all. So there's the dependency, it's set up. I can add another one if required, and let me add that task. Okay, so across in the context section, you can now start to see as the tasks start to appear inside here. I've got the ability to actually zoom into these tasks or edit them. Or I can compile up I can compress up all the context. You can flag a task, it's viewed in the start areas. Here are the projects that I'm working on, here are the actions associated with them. The tickler is simply just a little bit of a reminder about what's coming up in the future. So these are the pending tasks. In the organize here I can see a list of all the contexts that I set up, and if there's any actions associated with them. You can also hide contexts as well. And in the view, we can see a calendar of what needs to be done. We can set up feeds to our mobile phones and those sort of things, etc., or have a look at everything that's actually been done. And there's also a cool statistics section here, which will show you how many tasks and projects you've been working on, with nice little graphs and everything like that. Away you go. So again, just back here very quickly, the idea is during the day, you would simply keep this web browser open, and along comes a task. Don't sit and try to keep it in your mind. Just quickly go through here, type it into the system, and away it goes. And again, remember the key thing here is the actual tasks. We go through and we choose the different contexts that we're working through. So there we go. That's a quick rundown of time management system using the tasks system. If you'd like an account, talk to your manager and they'll get one set up free of charge straight away. Thank you and good morning.